In the setups we develop, in deck lists that we dreamt up, in the top cuts, our table 501. We wanted them back so we could start to have fun. It's time to come clean since 2013. The Dragon Rulers were everything. The Dragon Rulers were everything. The Dragon Rulers were everything. In the
Trying to muscle in on my territory, eh?
No, Good afternoon, Jank enthusiasts. I'm MBT, and this is 10-Minute Testing. We're kicking off the year right with another Patreon request. Cleaning out the old inbox before we look at the actually playable decks from Supreme Darkness. Anyway, surprising no one, the masses heard the daddies were back and wanted to check out Dragon Ruler at full power. Well, as full power as it'll be until it gets the Chaos guys. Presenting Dragon Ruler.
I don't even know if that's correct.
So here's the list. As always, I'll give you a background about the archetype, a little bit of a discussion about what I hope the deck can do, and of course the card by card. But first, this video is sponsored by PVRAMID. If you're a seasoned veteran of the channel, you're well aware of my relationship with PVRAMID Gaming. They're largely responsible for the reemergence of the field cloth since COVID. Their artisanal material is really something special, and as a result, they are just perpetually sold out of everything. If you check their stock right now, they have like 6 field cloths total, and like one of them is Yu-Gi-Oh! But that's not all they do. For the past few years, I've relied on PVRAMID for my merch. If you've seen the Frogborn hoodies, the Fluebird shirts, the Broke Boy trucker hats, you know they know their shit. In fact, they may know their shit too well, because every time we put out a line, it disappears in a couple of days. Okay, this is all preamble to let you know we're hawking more of it. That's right, baby. New merch line just in time to be late for Christmas. Here's what we got. First up is the YOLO collection. It's got a little me in the Ibly position, disc in hand, no vomit on the horse. Second up is the design you cannot get enough of. The Toad has returned. Frogborn is back. Both YOLO and Frogborn are going to be on hoodies, zip-ups for the first time ever, and honestly, these are the ones I'm most excited about. Pants. Joggers with pockets and the little guy on them. All of these are going to be made to order, and we're going to be taking pre-orders for a couple of days. But that's not all! From a couple of boxes they found while moving, Frogborn dad hats. Personally, I am so happy with this merch. It really blows the fucking Teespring YouTuber standard out of the water. They're comfy, they're made to last, and importantly, they're stealth enough that people don't need to know you're wearing YouTuber clothing. Anyway, the flash sale is live right now. Check the link in the description. Now back to the video. So with that, let's drool over the droolers. The Dragon Rulers, Tidal, Blaster, Tempest, and Redox were attribute-aligned big ol' boys that dominated Yu-Gi-Oh! From their first print to their dying day. Each daddy had an associated baby ruler, Reactin, Stream, Lightning, and Burner that could summon them from deck. They really reflect a 2025 type of card design in 2013. They have an effect that can trigger in the hand, one that triggers when they're banished, and a reborn effect from the graveyard. They were responsible for a few impressively broken formats, followed by a few that were fine while the daddies were at one apiece. Ultimately, after breaking the game one final time alongside Dark Matter Dragon, they were permanently sent to the ban list. Or so we thought. For the past few years, they've been creeping off the list one at a time, and in the most recent ban list update, Konami finally ripped off the band-aid and brought all 4 daddies back to 3. But now what do we do with them? Well, more than you might imagine. Despite being older than the average Farfa viewer, each Dragon Ruler has applications you may not expect. Since they're easy to summon 7s, they slot nicely into a Chaz-Tira style deck featuring the armed Dragon Thunder monsters. At least, so says Abyss on Twitter. Since they're dragons, they could find a home in Dragon Link as repeatable bodies for a deck that could use follow-up, but the issues with Dragon Link are more pervasive than we need a guy for turn 3. I personally like them best in this, a deck playing the 2 most powerful engines in Yu-Gi-Oh!, Kashtira and Fiendsmith, and operating off of the Fiendschmidt logic that you're not going to be able to build the end board you want, but you will be able to do something. There's a ton of synergy here. The caches are 7s for Dracosac setups, Birth can summon back the Winds, that's banished for Tempest, the recursive bodies work wonders with the Fiendsmiths, and more. This deck attempts to use the Rose Dragons as their normal, because with the right to Den of Daddies, Gen X return 0 is 3 or 4 negates, plus banish triggers. So with that, let's get into the card by card. First up, the Kashtira. 3 Unicorn, 3 Fenrir, and 1 Tearlament Kashtira. Kashtira Unicorn, of course, is the best card we could be finding, able to get Birth and normal summon 7s from our hand, but importantly, also, if sent to the graveyard as part of a Dracosac, can be brought back, a la 2024 Diabellstar setups. Fenrir, of course, is nothing to shake a stick at either, and one of the few ways this deck can even remotely play around Fua Loss. And Tearlament Cashier is a nice card you can search that banishes a card from your field. Here, a Cashier you can bring back with Birth, and then mills some cards, ideally some number of Dragon Rulers. Let's go there now. Tempest, Red Ox, Tidal, and Blaster. It's kind of frustrating that we have all of these available, and we're only playing 2 of 3 of them. But the effects really aren't fantastic. Blaster's removal. Tidal is, well, sort of Foolish Burial. Red Ox is sort of Monster Reborn, and Tempest searches a dragon monster. This one actually does have a lot of applications, especially because we're not only playing one apiece of each of the babies, but also the Rose Dragons. You want to draw this or Tempest in order to get to them, and this of course allows you to go into Rox Rose Dragon into Basil Rose Shoot for a ton of material and access to cards like Bestial Despotter and Arms of Genex Return 0. After that, we've got 3 copies of Fiendsmith Engraver, 1 copy of Lacrima, 1 Fabled Lurie, and 1 Fiendsmith's Tract with the Paradise. We are deep in on this engine, but we're not maxed out on Luries or Lacrimas because we already have normal summons that we want. Finally, the Birth and our non-engine, 3 Fulos and 3 Droll and Lockbird. In the extra, we've got Requiem, Striker Dragon, Spheres, IP Masquerena, Moon, Sequence, SP Little Knight, Wave High King Caesar, Shangri-Ira, and Dracosac, Changing, Return 0, and Despotter, Necroquip, and Desiree. As you can see, it actually requires a lot of extra deck investment in order to make anything out of these big boys, but frequently just their bodies will be enough. In the side, we've got our court-ordered Malice Floodgate, 1 copy of Koakai Mairu Drago to get off of a copy of Hieratic Seal, a Harpies Feather Duster, triple Tactics, Thrust, triple Book of Eclipse, a Sanctum, and triple Dimensional Barrier. So with that, let's jump into game. Our first match is up against Rizio, but before you get too excited, it's playing toy cards. I don't know what compels people to play bad rank 4 enablers in their deck full of good rank 4 enablers, but if I ever figure it out, I will do my best to create a vaccine against it. I guess we will just go ahead and begin with a copy of Cashier Unicorn. Thank goodness we're going first in our hand with no non-engine. We're going to follow it up with the Tempest, which gets us access to Red Rose Dragon. Then we're going to go ahead and activate the Birth before we go into a Return 0. Red Rose is going to proc here. That's going to get an Ash out of our opponent's hand. No big deal. We can still do a lot here. We're going to go Burner to get a copy of Blaster, and then afterwards we can Birth to bring back, you guessed it, a copy of Cashier Unicorn. Here I think it's safest to just go through the Fiendsmith line. We're going to go into a copy of Lacrima, use the effect of the Lacrima in order to send a copy of the Fiendsmith Engraver to the graveyard, and I think ending on a copy of Wave High King Caesar is in our best interest because it preserves the Lacrima interaction on our opponent's turn. They're going to draw for turn, and let's see how far they get. They're going to begin with a copy of Toy Box. Toy Box is going to activate here. They're going to set a couple of cards. We're going to chain the effect of the Lacrima so we can get our copy of Fiendsmith Requiem onto our field, and then Lacrima back into the deck. Afterwards, we are going to go for the effect of the Fiendsmith Requiem for a Lacrima, then activate the effect of the Lacrima in order to send a copy of Paradise. They're going to go for an Ext Rizial and a copy of Mirologic Aggregator that will attempt to negate the effect of the Wave High King Caesar, but we can negate that with the Genex Return 0. Afterwards, they will go for a Sword, activate the effect of the Sword, which will also be negated by our Return 0, and then trigger the effect of the Blaster in order to grab, well, another Blaster. They'll go for a copy of Node, and yep, time to pull the trigger on Fiendsmith and Paradise. We're going to go for a Desiree in the graveyard, which is going to trigger its effect and send Node, at which point they will go for Toy Soldier, and we can activate the effect of Arms of Genex Return 0 to negate that. From here, we should be able to clean up pretty easily. We're going to go for Tempest to bring it back, and then normal summon a copy of Red Rose to go into Chungus. Red Rose is going to trigger this time, and we do get to resolve it for a Rox Rose. That's going to grab us a Basil Rose Shoot. From this position, we can make Moon of the Closed Heaven, and then summon a Blaster to our side of the field, proccing the effect of the Changing and banishing this copy of Toy Box and the Mirologic Aggregator. We're going to bring back this copy of Rox Rose Dragon and make a Despotter, getting in for well over lethal. Our second match is up against Melodious, which I think is going to be very popular this format, if only because it appears to be the choice of deck for the budget-minded. This game showcases a pretty rough card against our strategy, Droll and Lockbird. Now, thankfully, we've drawn into the single Fiendsmith card that does, in fact, require an add, so the Droll will be able to come down after it, but we did get it out of the way, which is great. We're going to go Requiem into Lacrima effect in order to send a copy of the Fiendsmith, and Fiendsmith Requiem targeting the Lacrima so we can make Necroquip and get ourselves a little bit of Nibiru insurance before we commit to anything. After going for the Wave High King Caesar, we're going to go for Lightning in order to summon a Tempest from deck. Then afterwards, we're going to normal summon a Red Rose Dragon into a Return 0. Red Rose triggers to get a copy of Rox Rose, and of course that can't trigger because we're under Droll, but we will get Tempest into a Chungus, and that's just the board, I suppose. Our opponent's going to draw. They're going to begin with a copy of Couplet. What's unfortunate is that all these cards work together, and any one of them being removed from the equation would really remove the ability of our board to interact with our opponent. After we draw, we're going to go for the Requiem into Lacrima, into Requiem, into Lacrima, into Fiendsmith and Paradise, at which point they will go Concerto, we'll go Wave High King Caesar, they'll go Orange Light, and of course we can Return 0 to negate it. At point of resolution, we'll trigger the effect of the Changing in order to banish the last card on their side of the field. They'll normal summon a copy of Refrain and concede. So it's time for game 3, and you know what that means, a best of 3 versus meta. Our opponent's on Malice, and god do I love this deck. It just feels less solved than Ryziel, and I love when the TCG gets its hands on an unsolved deck. Things go awry very quickly. Speaking of going awry, there's a Fualos. What are we going to do about that? Okay, we could pass here and Fualos ourselves, but I think it's safer to go for Unicorn into Birth, into Fenrir, into grab ourselves a copy of Tearlament Kashtira, so if the board gets outed, we can maybe protect our life points and pass. Our opponent's going to begin with a copy of Malice and Underground in order to banish a copy of Dormouse, trigger the effect of the Dormouse, and summon it to their side of the field. We'll go for the Unicorn here and walk directly into a Forbidden Droplet, which negates the entire field. Ho-hum. They're going to go Dormouse into a White Rabbit effect in order to summon itself. They do have an MTP07, so they'll probably get TB11 here. No, going for the GWC. You know what? Let's just go next. So it's time for game 2, and wow, a lot of people have found a lot of floodgates this time. Alright, let's begin with the effect of Fiendsmith Engraver for a Tract. We'll follow it up with a Tempest in order to grab a Red Rose Dragon, special summon out this Unicorn and activate the effect of the Unicorn for a Birth. We're going to activate the effect of the Birth, and then we're going to normal summon a Red Rose Dragon to go into return 0 Red Rose into Lancia. I think we are probably okay with that, but it also prevents our return 0 from banishing, I believe. We're going to go for Birth here to bring back the Unicorn so we can end on Chungus, and then we're going to go for Fiendsmith's Tract for a Lurry. We'll go Lurry effect in order to summon it to our side of the field into Requiem effect in order to summon out our Lacrima, and guess what? We actually don't really need to banish from this point on. We are, of course, going to lose access to our very powerful suite of Dragon Ruler monsters, but we can still make a copy of Wave High King Caesar, and then fire off this Thrust to set a copy of Artifact Sanctum. Hey, you liked Lancia so much? Let's see how much you like it now. They're going to begin with a copy of Fualos in draw, and then Infinite Impermanence, chaining to the return 0, and Forbidden Droplet to negate everything on field before going for White Rabbit. Okay, that's fun. We are going to go for Sanctum. You can have your little draw. We are going to activate Lancia at point of resolution, and that should be all she wrote. They're going to go a TB11, banishing this copy of White Rabbit. We'll summon back the Requiem, and then afterwards we can, of course, use the Requiem effect in order to summon out a Lacrima from deck. Once again, drawing our opponent a card, but I'm not too concerned about it, especially when they hit a Dotscaper. That's hilarious. They'll go Link Decoder into Access Code Talker, and then they will Access Code Talker targeting their Heart Scripter. They're going to go to the battle phase, walk over, and then make a Splash Mage effect, bring back the Malice White Rabbit into a White Binder, banish 0 because of the Lancia. Woof. All right, we'll draw for turn, and now everything's back online. They're going to go for MTP to banish our copy of King Caesar, and then they're going to go for GWC to bring back this White Rabbit, at which point we can activate Fiendsmith in Paradise to send Desiree and use the effect of the Desiree to send the White Binder. From here, we can just activate Birth in order to summon back this copy of Unicorn, Basil Rose Shoot in order to summon back this Rox Rose Dragon, which will cycle for a Red Rose Dragon. We'll use the effect of the Tempest and Graveyard we couldn't last turn to make a copy of Dispotter, and Engraver shuffling back this copy of Desiree to make SP Little Knight. Let's normal summon a Unicorn and go to the battle phase. That's 16, 25, 35, 31. At Fualos is a cold comfort. So it's time for that all-important Game 3, and unfortunately for the first time today, we are going second. That Dimensional Barrier is frightening, I guess a little. It's not that scary. I mean, what are they going to call Xyz? We could always just Link Summon. They're going to go Chessy Cat, banish this copy of White Rabbit, and boy, they were really in on Dimension Barrier. From here, they're going to go White Rabbit in order to set a copy of GWC, and then afterwards make a Haggard Lizardos. Code of Soul comes down, and afterwards Haggard Lizardos is going to banish the Dormouse, which has not yet triggered its banish effect, summoning it back to their side of the field for 3 hundo. From here, they're going to make a Red Ransom effect in order to grab the field spell, and a Link Decoder into a White Binder. Link Decoder here summons itself back. Afterwards, we'll activate White Binder in order to set a copy of MTP07 before GWCing it away in order to bring back the Red Ransom, gain 2300, and trigger the effect of the White Binder, linking it to the Red Ransom and drawing. We'll go for Neo Tempest Terahertz into Malice and Underground, into Red Ransom, and at the conclusion of this chain, we can activate the effect of the Neo Tempest Terahertz to get the Save Worm in Graveyard. Set to pass. That's frightening. Okay, we're going to begin with a copy of Unicorn. We will use Unicorn to get Birth, and then afterwards we will activate Birth. That allows us to normal the Rox Rose Dragon. We'll trigger the effects. They're going to go for Synchro off Dimensional Barrier, and then afterwards we're going to make a Striker Dragon into an SP Little Knight. We're going to try and banish this copy of Terahertz, and oh god, what a devastating Lancia. Alright, see ya. So we're back with the deck, and well, Daddy may be home, but I'm starting to realize why he left in the first place. Let's do the pros and cons. First, the pros. 1. Return 0 is amazing. This card does it all. It procs your daddies, it's like 9 negates, and it does a decent enough impression of Baron in a post-bar on the floor universe. 2. The grind. Unlike all-in strategies where you frequently get behind versus decks that threaten the same linear play every turn, this deck can grind with the best of them. This is a characteristic it shares with Fiendschmidt, but it also gets to attack with a big blaster. And 3, it just feels good playing these guys again. For all the times I decry anti-rotation Andes, decks like this are where I get it. And the cons. 1. Droll. The deck's got an insane problem into the bird and the boy. Fiendsmith helps a little, but you're often out of luck if he ever makes an appearance. 2, unlike Fiendschmidt, which is able to play 20 pieces of non-engine, you're able to play like 6 total. The daddies and their babies take up a lot of space, and while Dracosack can often beat built boards, it can't always. And 3, it feels kind of useless playing this right before they get some actually good cards. All in all, this deck's fun. If you want to play the rulers, go ahead, but you're not taking down any regionals until the Chaos Daddies come out. So that's that. Thanks so much for watching. These videos are made possible by, and occasionally suggested by, my patrons, some of whom have paid a hefty sum to be mentioned at the end of this video. Let's do that now. Thanks so much to About 99 Donuts, Elena Tincher, Alex Perea, Allison Elliott, Ally, Brett Henry, Cool Name, Darkmaster Zork, Derpin Dragon, DJ Elefante, FPS Lord Derp, John Piet, Killer Croc 467, Night Mary, Legal Rights, Lockstone, Luis Hernandez, Lullaby of Souls, Master of Faster, Matthew M. Derezzo, MBT Play Madolci, Mike Carlotti, N54 Lionheart, Nacho Gonzalez, Naxi Juto, Nebula Yu-Gi-Oh!, Project Mercury, Rohan Doge, Rose Lapine, Soul, Troy Says By Erasure Is Gay, Who's Nick, Wonder Waffle, and Yuki. Couldn't have done it without you.